Hi, I'm Katie Mahalic, and today we're talking with Bruce Scivally, author of The Last Stage. Hi, Bruce. Thanks for coming on today.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you about your new book. So, can you please tell me, have you always been interested in westerns?
Well, I grew up in rural North Alabama, back in the 60s and 70s. And one of the things that was on TV a lot back then, of course, you had a lot of Western TV shows like Gunsmoke and Bonanza and so on, but also a lot of old Westerns on TV. And back then, the local stations in Alabama would show the old B Westerns, the John Wayne movies that he made in the 30s and all that sort of thing. And as I got older, I got exposed to the John Ford movies and some of the other directors, Anthony Mann and his Jimmy Stewart westerns, or some of the Gary Cooper westerns. So I've always enjoyed them. As I wrote this Wyatt Earp story first as a screenplay, and it won like half a dozen contests. It placed at fourth place or higher in about 20 more. So I thought, well, why not try writing it as a novel and see if I can get at least get it out to the public that way. This is one of those stories that once I started to write it, it came very fast, and it's almost one of those instances where it seemed like the story chose me,
Mm.
through the vehicle to get it out there. So it was easier than the usual kind of storytelling where you're trying to plot it out and you're having a lot of trouble just figuring out where the story's going. This is one of those that was kind of fully formed from the get-go.
Was it fully formed from the get-go, even for the script, or do you think?
Yes and no, because I had originally had a much grander idea for what the script would be. In all the research I'd been doing on Wyatt Earp, I found out that Wyatt Earp's last words were suppose, suppose. And I thought, what was he supposing? And that's what the script became. In the story, then, Wyatt Earp, it's 1929, it's Los Angeles, he's dying. His biographer was there, his doctor was there, his wife was there, who was Jewish. Her name is Josephine, he called her Sadie. And also maybe because it was Christmas time, I was thinking of A Christmas Carol where, Ebenezer Scrooge is visited by these ghosts of Christmas past and so on. As he's dying, he begins to see visits with people from his past, his first wife, his brother who was killed in the gunfight at the OK Corral afterwards, and Doc Holliday.
Mhm.
And it's called The Last Stage because as I was trying to figure out how to structure the story, I'd read an article about how when Harold Ramis was writing Groundhog Day, he basically structured that around Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief and dying. And in Groundhog Day, that's kind of metaphorically what's going on with the Bill Murray character. He keeps reliving the same day over and over. And each one of those days he relives is one of those stages of learning to deal with grief and acceptance and so on. And I thought, well, that's kind of brilliant. I could apply that to my story. So in a way, that's what happens. We have Wyatt Earp kind of going through the 5 stages of accepting that he's got to let go of this world and move on to the next stage. And his wife is also going through her grieving process of letting go of her life companion that she's been with for 40 years.
Mm.
So ultimately, they both reach the last stage.
Mm. What were the themes that you were looking to express specifically with this book?
Well, I have reached a certain age now where I'm can definitely see the end of the tunnel.
Bruce, you're not that old.
Once you come to the realization that you're closer to the end than you are to the beginning, you begin to think a little more about what have you contributed, what have you done, and you start grappling with those issues of how do I make peace with where I am now and where I'm moving on to and make the transition and those are sort of the things that are in the book. Also, his wife in the story is very codependent, so he's also concerned about what's going to happen with her when he's gone. A lot of people don't realize Wyatt Earp, when he died, there were some newspaper headlines about him, but he wasn't known the way he is now. And it wasn't until after he died, because there was a biography published about him, that became the basis for several movies, including My Darling Clementine and Gunfight at the OK Corral, and then the TV series that ran for nearly 10 years. All of those things are what really put Wyatt into the popular culture. you know.
See.
But at the time of his death, he was just one of many kind of Old West figures who were kind of fading out of the scene, you know. But he was well aware that he knew his story had some value, and that's the one thing, because he and Sadie didn't have a lot of money when he died, hardly any, that's something he could leave to her that she would be able to benefit from. So they were, in the last years of his life, tried several times to get biographies written and tried a few different writers.
Thanks for speaking with me today. I'm very interested and excited to see the novel based off the screenplay, The Last Stage. So look for Bruce Civally's book, The Last Stage, at henrygray.com or ask for it at your local bookstore. See you guys soon. Happy reading.